Why, hello, hi, it is me, it is I, small town Didi, your Khadi, and these are very internet and akastag. I'm back, hello, darlings. Now, I know one of you out there is like, I knew it. That week where she was churning out content, like, I knew we were gonna have a drought. Kelala, you were right, but whatever, bro. Like, I'm back because Rahadi's here. Rahadi wants to talk to you guys. Okay, you guys. Every time I come on here, I look like I've got good skin. If you run into me in real life, don't. You hear me? Don't say nothing to me about. Oh, your skin looks so clear. Your skin. Why is it not so clear? Like I'm bored. Anyway, why am I down here? I have a lot on my mind. I've had a lot going on, so I felt off reviewing the Real Housewives. I watched the last episode, made notes, and then my life happened. And then I couldn't sit down to have the chats, and I haven't watched further because you guys know I don't like doing that. But that's not why I'm sat here with you guys today. I've missed you all. Hope you've missed me a bit. I want to chat to you all about this notion of useless degrees within the South African context. We aren't the only ones having this conversation, but that's the conversation that I can speak to, right? Now, I think I want to start this off by saying I am not saying that everything, I don't really believe there's any kind of education that's useless, but I understand in a capitalist society, some degrees are then rendered useless because you can't survive and participate in this society, how we have it structured. But knowledge in itself can never really be useless or devalued or something that you derive pleasure from, that you love knowing more about and stuff, right? But that unfortunately is not our reality. It's not rooted in reality. The BA girls get it the worst. Baby, the Bachelor of Sciences girls also get it the worst. I'm not going to be doing a list or anything like that. More than it is, I want to talk about the discourse that I'm seeing around this and where I feel we're missing the mark and not finding each other. I feel when you exist in this happens with everybody. I am in a township. I have a very particular kind of social circles rather, and my life looks similar to theirs, and then you can get carried away and think that is the fabric of South Africa. You can really, because that's the human brain, really think that you are the average South African, especially if you experience adversity, so to speak, right? And you go without in certain parts. You can sometimes fool yourself into thinking that you, as like Didi, the experience I've had, parts have been hard and stuff, but you can delude yourself into thinking that you are the average South African. Not true. The average South African is poor. Like poorer than what I have to go through. I go without. I've gone without plenty of times, plenty of things, right? I've never gone to bed hungry, right? And so when the conversation happens, I feel like people like me who've know to strive, who sacrifice some things, who maybe don't have the nicest, brightest, shiniest things, right? But they've had certain opportunities extended to them, and they don't have a broader social circle than or a group of friends who look like them. We take it the hardest. Some of the content creators I'm going to mention on TikTok, I believe are doing great work. And I also believe that they are targeted at a specific audience and we're getting offended and they're not talking to us. The main one is Drunk Uncle on TikTok, as well as Life Reset with Bonnie. Bonnie does a wider range, I feel, and tries to give recourse and stuff where maybe you've gone down this path already. They are speaking to the child who comes from the home that still needs to be built, right? So when they're saying to this child, this degree is useless for you, they're saying you will not be able, you're not giving yourself a fighting chance to claw yourself out of poverty, which in itself is a very complex thing, right? Like, it's not a thing. The system is set up for you to just claw and claw and claw, right? But you have a better chance, right? They're speaking to the child who went to bed hungry, the child who has a leaking roof, and they some nights they had to study by candle, or they've bridged electricity, or they're speaking to that child that you are unfortunately not in a position of privilege to pursue your purpose, to pursue your dreams. Like, the pursuit of happiness is not your thing. You unfortunately do not get to participate in this. You need to be a bit more practical and exist within the confines of capitalism. And that is, these are the set of degrees. Go here, and then you're going to get a stable job, and you'll be able to build your mom a house and be able to take your siblings to university. Me, I don't have to build nobody a house. I don't need to go and take offense when drunk uncle is trying to help that particular black child, simply because that's not my experience, right? And the message is not for you, and you get lost in the source. But you're not the audience, my babe. They're not talking to you. Don't do that, right? And start doing the back and forth, and one of you's the one exception in the comments. I studied this, and this is my earning, but you know that you're the only person you know from the year you graduated in who's in that position, and everybody else is still trying to make sense of things. You know this. You know that you're the exception to the rule, and you're still trying to sell this to the poor kid who doesn't have the same kind of recourse as you. A person like me, and this is what happened, right? I got to do exactly what I wanted to do. My parents supported me. They continue to support me to this day. When things weren't going to plan, I got to have a phone call made to me saying, come home. Do you know why? I had a home to come back to. I had a bed and fresh sheets that smell like fabric softener to come home to. No leaking roof anywhere. There was gonna be food. Nobody was gonna look at me like, this, that, and you can't contribute to anything. If anything, they were desperate to have me back to make sure that I'm okay, that I'm safe, that my mental is intact and stuff. I have that. This conversation that drunk uncle is having is not for me, and we need to make room for it, right? But in doing so, we must also be responsible, because I've seen other stitches and other takes on this where we're almost shaming the child that grew up in this type of poverty that I'm talking about, who, if you already come from this situation, you're not getting the career exhibitions, you're not getting the pamphlets that are teaching about this, you don't have people around you in your community who you can look at and be like, oh, what do they do? That looks like something. You don't have those, right? You're just in school, and then you get to matric one day, and they're like, pick a thing. Maybe you pick that thing, and then you don't get accepted for it, right? But the teaching is that higher education is the path for you. It's the way out. Then you stand in the queues in January like everybody else, and you get there, and they're like, well, this is the list of what's left. And then you just pick something there, because you're being told as long as you are at like an institution of higher learning, you have a fighting chance, right? And you pick what was made available to you as that black child who didn't have advice around you. Yours as a person stitching that thing isn't to shame that child. There are a lot of children, especially on TikTok, who are looking for help and recourse, and they're getting shamed. Why am I going to cry? What is wrong with me? Baby, I had to stop that. I cannot be this person crying about, but things like this bother me, right? Your job as a person during that stage, or your job as a person who's decided that you want to do education-based content, your job is to provide that learner who's not at the end of this degree and they're sitting at home with it and they don't know what to do with it. It's to provide the reset that Bonnie does, right? Because it's literally what she does, right? Give them a way out. And if you lack the creativity, the knowledge, or the work ethic to figure out how to help people to structure their way out of whatever hole they've dug themselves unknowingly into, then you do not need to do content around this topic. Because I don't like it when I hear, Or if you've already done this, then it's too late for you. If you, maybe you just lack creativity and this is not your field. Maybe you lack the wherewithal to be guiding people out of the space and you don't belong here. Maybe it's you aren't good at your job. Now, in the same breath of having the conversation where the poorest of us, and that's the majority of us, okay, and even up until we have zero of us in these situations where we're going to bed hungry and we're going without and life is so dire, it's one too many of us. Now that I've made like arguments for that side of things, where I understand that they're not having this conversation with me, duality is a thing. I do need a drunk uncle type person, not him but like just, that type of content creator who's creating content around education and informing particularly the Black child of their opportunities and what to take advantage of. I need that content creator to also leave room for the Black child who is me. And I feel that's where we fail. Something that bothers me in particular is when they keep saying, oh, psychology and social work are such useless whatevers. And by discouraging a big number of Black young people into these careers, we're creating a problem. It's short-sighted. We're creating an issue where we're going to end up where the field looks like one racial group, right? And we aren't there. And we know for a fact that people carry with them their biases, their prejudice, their racism into their workspaces. We cannot be so short-sighted that we discourage all of Black people from don't pursue this, go here, and also deduce our experience as a human experience to one that's simply completely linked to capitalism, right? And if this is not gonna pay this much, it's useless and it's not worth it. Because believe it or not, and it's a difficult thing, a difficult concept to explain to a person who drunk uncle is talking to, who that kind of content creator is speaking to, a person who's gone hungry. The idea of the pursuit of happiness, the idea of fulfillment, the idea of purpose simply does not exist because their basic needs aren't being met. My basic needs were met. My whole life, to this day, they continue to be met. I don't live in abundance by any like way, shape, or form, but I simply also do not exist in lack like that, right? My financial insecurity, one could even at times say these are, in the South African context, I don't think so. I think these are basic human rights. They probably actually are. I think I've come on here a lot and talk about like not having medical aid and how that like literally keeps me up, and maybe that comes from having had it from being on my mom's medical aid most of my life, and then I aged out of that and I can't afford to keep up my life and pay for healthcare, and that's what I go through. That's not quite on the same scale as somebody who's actually hungry, as somebody who has 2 pairs of trousers when they go to university and they try to get through those 3 years, who struggles who rations out their toiletries and stuff. It's not quite the same conversation, but I do need for nuance in the conversation. I do need for us to make room for both of us to exist without trying to diminish the other's experience or compare our experiences. Mostly for us to recognize that we have different needs and different things are going to fulfill these needs. But we cannot say, Black child, don't study history, because we're leaving ourselves open to, once again, them deciding what that history is, them sitting in their spaces and not being challenged on the accuracy of that history that they get to write and rewrite and edit and do and make things however. We leave space for them to be the only psychologists where when we go in, they misdiagnose us as Black people because they've decided that we're stronger. Yeah, we know strive. We're stronger because they carry with them the racist shit, the biases, the eugenics fucking mess. When we leave these spaces specifically to them, we leave ourselves open to when we go and need those services, we cannot be serviced properly. I've heard a lot with people where they say when they've shopped for a therapist, right? I went to this person, the connection was, it's like finding a match. It's like anything else, right? It's important that we have people in those spaces that have lived our experiences, or at least understand the nuances of what it is to be a Black person, so that when you go into that space, they have that with them along with that education, and they're in a better position to assist you. Because I assure you, after you're done building your mom's house and you've put your siblings through school and you are Black taxed the fuck out, you're the very same person who's gonna need that Black psychologist. You are literally the person who's gonna need to sit across. And I'm not saying that other people who aren't Black don't have the capacity or wherewithal to grasp the little things that make, and we're not a monolith, blah blah blah, but like, I'm not saying they don't have it in them to grasp our realities, the ideas of Black tax, why we do the things we do, how we just move as a people. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the textbook doesn't teach them that, and unless they take it on themselves to learn those things, they're not gonna know, which will make them ill-equipped to deal with us. Also, the idea that you guys think you can survive without the arts, hilarious to me. Now, we can argue, do you need to go and do a whole BA to go or study theater or whatever to go and be on stage? We can do the back and forth and argue and say that some of these things you can learn on the job. But even in that, again, with the disingenuous shit, right? You are negating the fact that as a Black child, learning on the job isn't something that's always readily available for you, because your umpit is not the head of whatever, right? When you're a Black child, you need to produce the papers sort of to legitimize yourself or to show your seriousness, right? An apprentice kind of program and stuff like that, those things aren't always extended to people who look like us, especially in specific fields. In most spaces where those things are extended to us, it's artisan type work and things of that nature, where they'll teach you how to do the things with your work, or rather exploit your labor, but will not teach you the business of plumbing. I don't know how to explain that, right? Like, you can go there and say, oh, this is a plumbing service, or this is a welding, whatever. And the white guy will have you there for years. We saw Ogoba. That's what we call it, right? You were there, you be there, breaking your back, and they will never teach you the business, because that isn't your business to take over. And that's how we end up feeling like we must go to these institutions, right? There's no other avenue for us. We don't believe that you can exit matric and start getting the work experience, mostly because those opportunities aren't available to us. And in most cases, when they're available to you, it's a dead-end kind of career. It's retail, right? You can leave your matric and go work at a jet, an adcon branch, umbrella type thing, you know? But you will find yourself in that situation for evers and evers, and that's not okay. What am I saying? I'm saying none of it is really useless. I'm saying it's useful to the right person. That's really my chat, right? Let's not discourage all of Black children out of certain spaces, because we're gonna find ourselves lacking in those same spaces and looking back and being like, what happened here? Why are there no Black people over here? Because we told them if it doesn't have money, it's automatically not worth it. It's hard to fathom to people that some of us actually don't have this like weird appetite for more is more is more. And yes, we all need to exist in this society where, you know, cash is king and money talks and all of this stuff. I get that. I'm not trying to romanticize the idea that not having enough to get by is the way to go, but I'm saying we're lacking nuance in our chat. That's it. Bye, yalla.